Yeah, so we have a lot of controversies, and you have friends who are asking questions, wondering what the church is doing about this document. What is Pope Francis doing? So, here we are. I'm going to be answering your questions and concerns. Invite your friends. You can just tweet their names, those you know that are always wondering what's going on. I have the bulletin right here with me. Or the Sala Stampa de la Santa Seda, the bulletin of the Holy See here with me, and I've highlighted a few things that are very, very important in this document. And yes.
Yeah, we can have I have it up to if we need to highlight a particular paragraph you wanna talk about. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, from the um, um, the first, in terms of presentation, the first page right there, um, where he talks about our work must foster, along with an understanding of the church's perennial doctrine, the reception of the Holy Father's teaching. Okay, that's the last line of, you know, uh, the last line of the second paragraph there. Yes, on the presentation, one, two, yeah, second paragraph. Yeah, right. It says, second to the last one, it says, our work. After that, the quotation there, it says, our work must foster, along with an understanding of the church's perennial doctrine, along with that doctrine, so there's something very key there, that is a perennial doctrine that has not changed, the reception of the Holy Father's teaching. So there's, something there that the Holy Father wants to bring to bear. And so, even the next line, the next paragraph, he said, this declaration remains firm on the traditional doctrine of the church about marriage, not allowing any type of liturgical rite or blessing similar to a liturgical rite that can create confusion. It's laying down, some of these kind of premises, within which we're to understand this declaratio, declaration Fiducia Supplicans. And it goes about, it say, however, is that it offers a specific and innovative contribution to the pastoral meaning of blessing. So I think that's the core. Some pastoral meaning of blessing is being enlarged. It's actually being enlarged. So, and then even the second to the last paragraph there, he said it is precisely in this context that one can understand the possibility of blessing couples in irregular situations. And he uses the word irregular, so consistent,
Yeah. And
irregular.
and that's I think where maybe some people are not really sure
Yeah.
with the irregular what that means as far as like, is that those it says irregular situations and same-sex couples. So I think
Yes. Yeah.
irregular and then
So,
couples, those are two
right.
things that I think maybe a lot of people are
Right.
maybe
So
either
irregular,
confused about or
for
concerned
example,
about, or both.
back in Africa, for example, I can see already people talking about polygamous situations, right? I've seen
Right.
people talk about that. So it could be that kind of situation, which is irregular. You don't find that much in the West, but there's still seeds of that back in Africa. That could be
Sure.
one irregular situation.
Gotcha.
Uh, um, and same-sex couples. Of course, people frown out with the word use of couples, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And couple, you could couple things together. You could couple. In couple is not extreme. What do you call it now? An exclusive word for marriage. The
Well, yeah,
word
because I
couple.
think it's distinct from other documents, like the document from 2021 that talks about the impossibility of blessing same-sex unions, and
Right,
this is about same-sex couples. And I think
right. Not
people
not
are,
the
yeah,
union.
yes,
Yeah, because you're using the word they themselves use for themselves. Because this document strives not to pass judgment. You see, But he uses the word irregular. Irregular in the sense that we as Catholics see them, not only we as Catholics, but the scriptures sees them as irregular. And the foundation of the church's magisterium have always been right on what a regular union is, what marriage itself entails. Then
You
he
think
goes to,
you think a regular
right,
situation would be like a couple that is awaiting maybe divorced and remarried civilly, and they're awaiting maybe annulment
those kind of things.
papers, and
Yeah,
they want to present themselves for, let's say, a blessing.
right.
Obviously, it goes through very painstaking detail to say that should not be something viewed as a formal liturgical
No,
ceremony. Like people should not be wearing like a wedding gown and a
no,
tuxedo
nothing
or
at
nothing like
all.
that.
Yes, it was so clear on that point because yeah, I remember that, and I was just saying, look at this. It is so I think I highlighted that on let me see where that is. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
this is on 39.
okay.
Yes, he says this blessing should never be imparted in concurrence with the ceremonies of a civil union. You see, the Catholic Church is very detailed in terms of the nuances and making sure that it is technically clear. Okay, he says this blessing should never be imparted in concurrence with the ceremonies of a civil union. In the church, if you want to celebrate a marriage or witness a marriage by a priest, what we do normally is that you expect a license to be, brought forth from the registry or the court or something like that, and then based on that you go ahead to have this marriage sacramentalized in the church. But now the church is saying here, even if you have that prior, that should already clear the way that you're not going to do that. It excludes that, and not even in connection with them.
Yep.
These words are very clear. Nor can it be performed with any clothing, gestures, or words that are proper to a wedding. The same applies when the blessing is requested by a same-sex couple. You see, this takes off, all the subterfuge and all the kind of word banding. Of course, people want to sell their papers, right? They want to sell and they just throw it out there. And Catholics, of course, this age, it looks like the greatest enemy we have is that we do not read. uh-huh. So it's, yeah, the documents seem to be very, so it says this, even on number 6, he says this fact allows us to highlight the risk of confusing a blessing given to any other union with the right that is proper to the sacrament of marriage. You see, that was the last line there.
Yep.
So it went on always to really make sure that there's no confusion. And then he also goes on to tell us about the right of a blessing, the blessings that God pours down, on us. That's where he was talking of, 9, 10, and 11 there, explaining, the blessings that, and what are blessings, how are they imparted. Talks of the book of blessings, and this particular sort of blessing that is being anticipated is not going to be in the book of blessing. It is even like, just to say, perform to, something informal.
Like say a psalm, or say may the
Right.
Lord bless you and keep you, something
Yes.
like that. Yeah.
And that this document also forbids ecclesiastical authorities, bishops or priests, or what do you call it, episcopal conferences from initiating norms or making it formal. Do you see that? It takes away everything, no powers for anybody to do anything like that, so that no episcopal conference will just become crazy, and say, oh, now we hear it from the Pope, let's establish this sort of blessings for this particular. No. It is left for the pastoral prudent judgment of each priest. But reading all this to see whether it applies. If it does not apply, I saw that some people were talking about a certain priest in America who, you know, I can't speak to that kind of picture because you never can tell when that picture was taken.
Well, I think I know what you're talking about. Let me see
Right.
if I can find it. Because yeah, that was actually one of my questions for you
Uh-huh.
today was, I think the notorious priest we're talking about is Father James Martin,
Uh-huh.
and I
Uh-huh.
think he, let me see if I can find it here. Because I think it was kind of strange because I don't know if this, he says, and this is where I think I won't say problematic, but I think people are maybe going to interpret what they want out of it,
Oh yeah.
or they're going to, they're going to say, I'm not sure what Germany, you mentioned a little bit about the German bishops,
Mm-hmm.
and what, like this is, do you think that this
Yeah. So
tamps down on what they should be doing?
right. So
Oh,
in number 37, I just want to read what the Holy Father says in 37.
okay.
In this regard, there come to mind the following words of the Holy Father, already quoted in part. So he says, that is to say, it is not appropriate for a diocese, a bishop's conference, or any other ecclesiastical structure to constantly and officially establish procedures or rituals for all kinds of matters. You see, uh,
You said
canon
that
law
was
should not
was that number 9
yeah.
you said?
So he let me see now. Nor should the ecclesiastical or episcopal conference claim to do so with their various documents and protocols, since the life of the church flows through many channels besides the normative ones.
This was in 37, I think I found it.
Yeah. Did you find it?
So yeah, here, it's-
Yeah. Yeah, because on 30, on 35, 35, he says the pastoral sensibility of ordained ministers should also be formed to perform blessings spontaneously that are not found in the book of blessings. So what we saw that Father James Martin was doing is irresponsible. Yeah, something like that. Uh-huh. So
so
it
here,
is.
yes, this seems problematic because we have two people. It said not to have spontaneous or to be spontaneous, not be something that's like, planned and whatnot. Well, we have a photographer there. We have, them holding hands, and I believe these
Mhm.
people are legally married, a legally married, couple, if you
Yeah,
will. And so, and Father James Martin, he said, I'm doing this, I'm going to the T to implement the document. So I feel like this is obviously one instance here, and we hope that there are not other instances out there that are gonna just, use that.
one thing is that if one does this, okay, this person is acting contrary to the wishes of the Holy Father. He's not listening to what the Holy Father says. And ordinarily, ipso facto, it is null and void. It is null and void. He's acting out of sheer lack of goodwill and is not furthering the purposes of the Holy Roman Catholic Church by doing this. We all can read documents. You can see me highlighting it and making sure that we understand the intent of the Holy Father. And as a church, Holy Mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, wishes that all her priest sons listen to the Holy Father and defend him, because the voice of the Holy Father, even the Blessed Mother, does not speak when the Holy Father is speaking. She keeps quiet and intercedes for him. Okay, so what is going on now is that there's a seed of rebellion being sown and confusion to obfuscate what the Holy Father intends to do as a father. Because we cannot say that this problem is not real. I got a note, an email from a family that told me about the situation. I like you to take that one down because I'm not even happy looking at it. Yeah, so telling me about the struggle, of their son. And it's not like he has any affair or anything around, but that's what he finds. We find situations where men and women have even all those heterosexual attraction. We have all those situations. We have people who have their own spiritual attack. Okay, this is a spiritual attack for the whole of the church itself and her members. Now, the Holy Father is looking at a situation where, look, you cannot exclude these people, and you want to help. The heart of a father will go to them. So if somebody says, I need a blessing, and he goes on to say, if somebody comes to say, I need a blessing, the person properly is saying, look, if you give me this blessing, it could help me. The person recognizes the place of God and trusts that a mediation of God will help them in this particular situation. And of course, that they will now live according to God's will. So he said, even if their closest relatives have abandoned them because they now judge them to be irredeemable, God always sees them as his children.
Yes.
This is on 27.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bring that back up. I think I found what you're talking about.
And even on 25, he said, when people ask for a blessing, an exhaustive moral analysis should not be placed as a precondition for conferring it. For those seeking a blessing should not be required to have prior moral perfection. So these are things that he has been looking at. And truly, as a father, I'm just wondering in my heart how God is looking at us individually, looking at all his children all over the world. All he desires is how to get them home. That's all. Devoid of all this political random thing that is going on, division. When Pope Francis enacted and propounded that, like the Jubilee, proclaimed the Jubilee of Mercy, there is a certain exorcist in Brazil who was doing exorcism for, I think, a girl or a person, and then the devil in that person spoke out why there's so much confrontation against Pope Francis, because the devil hates that he proclaimed the year of mercy. Because the year of mercy will have so many people coming to the church if it was properly understood. Then they messed it up. That, what are you talking of mercy? Look, the same mercy that God the Father brought on the day of the birth of Jesus is the same mercy that Margaret Mary Alacoque talked about, is the same mercy that Faustina talked about, is the same mercy that John Paul II, when he eventually opened up, the books on divine mercy and proclaim a day of, Sunday for divine mercy and all that. Pope Francis may not just be that theologian that who's going to, but he has the heart of a father.
Sure.
Who desires to see that every person, and he goes on to say, I think the last part, 43 there, he goes on to say, the church is thus the sacrament of God's infinite love. Therefore, even when a person's relationship with God is clouded by sin, he can always ask for a blessing, stretching out his hand to God, as Peter did in the storm when he cried out to Jesus, Lord, save me. It's so true.
Absolutely.
So he has a pastoral concern, and he has not touched He has not toyed with the doctrine of the church on marriage. In fact, it was clearly spelled out, in more places than one in this, and it's just caused a spontaneous blessing. I think this document has enjoyed publicity, but I think it has, for well-meaning people, I wish that they try as much as possible to read it up and read it with an open mind. It is, for me, a way that the Pope has kind of opened up that opportunity of real dialogue, and it was really talking of dialogue. And the fact that today, when that kind of connection is built, such that now the priest who is involved in this kind of conversation may have more impact in the life of some of these people. And you know what? If they find dialogue, things may change. A lot may happen. There are some other, people are different. Those who want to fight the church on whatever they want to do, they are there. Those who will be embraced by the church through this. And there are instances, even in these diocese, of some people who claim they had what do you call it? They had same-sex attraction. And they had some pastoral attention from some priests in this diocese today who eventually married, and they had they married the real way marriage is done, and they have kids now.
Yes. It's funny you mentioned that, because I was listening to the Patrick Madrid show, I believe on Monday after this kind of came out, and they actually made it into it was about a one. I'm going to share it right here.
Yeah.
It's her name is Isabel, and she shared about how she was experiencing these things in high school and whatnot into college. She had relations with women and whatnot, but she had been raised in Catholic schools. She knew the teaching, she knew the truth, but she was struggling, and she did have, a pastoral accompaniment to, but guess she was told the truth.
Yes.
And her whole story here is that the truth of the Catholic Church saved her, and she was able to turn away from that life, turn away from that disordered life, and she now is married, has 3 children, and it's just a wonderful. I think it's about 11 minutes. I just encourage everybody to listen to this, but it sounds exactly what you were just
it's happening in this diocese. A priest shared the story, and that's how fathers act. That's the heart of God. And when I write my bulletin, I write truth and mercy. Okay, this was inspired by God for me, because when I see the polarization that is going on, there was a time I said, let's do something on conservative, liberal, something like that, and I discover now that it is even bigger than I thought. I wanted to just do something like 5 minutes video on, I'm not a conservative priest, I'm a Catholic priest. And now I can see it goes into different areas. I always tell people, God is liberal with his mercy, but it's not a liberal. God,
that term liberal is like kind of used in the opposite way. It's meant.
If you see the writings of the saints and how they talk of God's liberality with his mercy, God's prodigality of his mercy, and manifested in the life of the prodigal son. And here we are. We don't want to act like the older brother who feels that he has nothing to do with his son, his younger brother, and he calls him, that's your son when he comes back. Who knows? Many of these folks, brothers and sisters, may be attempting to come back. They are struggling. And then, if we can, by our contact with them, and bring them to the Father's home, how much will God be so happy with us that we became the Andrew who introduced them to find Jesus now? It's the situation, and I would just I'm just praying that we just try to be Catholic. And one of the problems of this is also that over time we were not actually catechized. Because we're not catechized, a person cannot remain in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
The political took the place where catechesis is supposed to be. And so today, we become strange bedfellows in the Catholic Church because it are political dispensations or political ideologies that filled us in rather than that we're fed with the words of the Holy Apostolic Church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the same thing, in different facets of the training, and thanks be to God, even like like Germany cannot go forward with this because the Holy Father has held them back. No Episcopal conference can put any, like a formal right. No. The church thinks through. It's so tight, watertight document.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that from the two sides of the divide, we just desire to be Catholics and listen to the voice of the Holy Father. And because in not listening, we now want to have our personal religion. That's the same thing that I say. Even recently, I was meditating on that story of Naaman and Elijah. He had leprosy. The little servant had said, "You know what? We have a prophet somewhere. He's going to help you." And he goes there. The prophet said, "Go wash yourself 7 times in the river Jordan." And said, "Can you imagine? We have more rivers back where I'm coming from in Samaria. I could have just bathed there. Why should I come here?" You don't choose how you're going to be healed. That's why you were there. Someone suggested to him, if he had told you something harder, would you have done it? You can write a book on this one. I'm telling you. Because today, the type of religion we are practicing is me type of religion. We want to choose the recipe. No. Religion is surrendering to be led. Anselm, great theologian, he said, faith seeking understanding. That's theology. Mm-hmm. Faith comes, the accent to faith comes, then we seek understanding. We don't fully understand, but we go on with it like that of a little child. That's why Jesus referred everybody to that of a little child, to try to be lowly and try to seek the understanding. But today, I don't know. And of course, many don't read. Yeah. How many of these media houses do you think have what do you call it? Have the copy? They just went on. They never looked at it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that there is some within this document. I do think that there's still some ambiguities that people can see whatever they want to see out of it, and they're gonna. But I think that with or without this document, I think maybe they were probably gonna do that anyway.
Right.
So, I think that we just need to, like, the doctrine can't change.
No.
The things that have been sacred and are the truths of the church, whether it be dogmas or the elements of infallibility, whether it be a doctrinal infallibility or a dogma, those things can't change.
No.
And but I mean, I think our understanding of kind of how those things apply in our lives, they obviously, that, like, the one example that I've heard is like the dogma of no salvation outside of the church. Like that is a dogma, but like there's nuances out of that, right? Because like all those people that come all of those people that are in heaven, they are Catholic.
Yes.
They are Christians.
Yes.
They've accepted Jesus as, like as their savior, and like
Mm-hmm.
so they are like everybody is like, so through like the Catholic Church,
Right.
people come into heaven. So it's
That's
not
it.
just like you have to be a card carrying Catholic to be into
No.
into heaven. That's not
Yeah.
what that dogma is
Yeah.
saying. So like just understandings of that. That's maybe how
Mm-hmm.
I try to
Right.
understand things.
Yeah. And I tell you, we're going to be having more of these conversations because, that's how we broaden people's understanding of what it's all about. It looks like, for example, look at, yeah, and yeah, I'll first say this, for example, this has expanded our understanding of blessing, no doubt.
Yep.
Prior to now, it was limited somehow, especially if we talk about blessing within marriage.
Mhm.
Okay, now it's expanded in terms of what are the kinds of blessings that are there. Okay, but we also look at how the Pharisees looked at Jesus. This also plays into it. They looked at him. If this man were a holy man or a prophet, he should know the kind of woman that is associating with him.
Mhm.
You know, even the disciples, the apostles, when they went away and he was talking to that woman at the well, they looked at him. They said, "How is he talking to a woman at this time of the day? Maybe they're bringing him food." They were wondering because a prophet of a rabbi of his status, doesn't interact with women in that way on his own, that alone.
Mhm.
Here he is with Mary Magdalene. He really made those interactions. Look at Zacchaeus, the tax collector, or even Matthew, whom he elevated eventually to become an apostle. There was those things that he did which ran against
That's right.
the Jewish stereotypes of how rabbis acted, because he was going to, Simeon had said in Luke's Gospel, chapter 2, verse 34, he said he would be a sign of contradiction
Mhm.
and it will cause the rising and falling of many in Israel. So it is within the point of accepting him that those people will rise. If we deny him, people will fall. And that was what he was going to be. We as Christians today, we continue to be a sign of contradiction. And if we don't take that Christ way, which is opposition to the world, and that's where Pope Francis is. Pope Francis is challenges the status quo, and that's why people say why, but he opens the opportunity where we can think more and not rely on all the old layers of that we can. He really thinks through and prays through them. Yeah.
Well, he's definitely different than our past two popes. We can say that.
Definitely. Definitely. And but
So
everything that he's saying now, he's not the one that sits down to write a book, or the theologian that we know that goes into. Just look at the writings of John Paul II. Even think about Veritatis Splendor. That rich young man, who had come to Jesus and everything. He said, "What good must I do to enter the kingdom of God?" and everything. He said, "Sell everything you have and give it to the poor." His explanation, that's not the way that Pope Francis will take things. Pope Francis will just, like ask with a question and everybody will be like, "What? What did he just say?" So you got to think again.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
But
Well, thank you so much, Father.
you're welcome.
If and anybody listening, either live or on a recording of this, if you, please comment or send in your questions.
Right.
If you have additional um, curiosity about this or just need clarifications, I think that Father's a canon lawyer, and he's able to kind of unpack this probably better than I anybody else I know locally here. So just thank you so much, Father, for
You're
taking the
welcome.
time to do this, and
And thank you.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.